Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive. We're going to get back into the sports thing and the Oriole thing and certainly the NFL draft as we get going here. And Luke will bring all the breaking news to you on the WNST Tech Service. It's all brought to you by Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy. And, of course, we're out doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour all month long. Fadley's this week. We're going to be at Costas on the 16th and Coco's on the 23rd. And then May 1st at Pizza John's over in Essex having crab cakes and some fun around here. All of it brought to you by the Maryland Lottery in conjunction with our friends at GBMC and Farnan and Dermer, who are keeping our HVAC and our plumbing needs together. I've been doing a lot of rock and roll lately and a lot of Canadian rock and roll. I got to get some American bands on here. Just don't tell Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson about that. But it all started with Rick Emmett a couple months ago when Triumph was going back out on the road. And anybody that knows me knows I'm a big Triumph fan. And what a big Canadian rock and roll fan I am in general. Luke Dosett's coming on this week, talking about his Bryan Adams tour. I ran around South America last month. And so the Canadian music and the flag kind of follows me around as an American. But this is a band that I remember as a kid. Listened to April Wine, saw the videos for Just Between You and Me, and other songs as well. And I am not as well versed on the history of the band as I want to be or as I need to be. But when I have Rick Emmett on and Triumph is doing this big reunion thing all across our country and Canada, he said, "Hey, April Wine's opening up." I went up on the website. I started singing Just Between You and Me. And next thing I know, Brian Greenway is here from April Wine. They will be opening for Triumph on the 28th up in Camden when they make their closest approach. And I don't know if this tour is going to get extended or not. When I've talked to Rick, he's like, "We're just trying to make it through. We got Phil X. We've got, these other members coming in to help them out. But how about support act with an iconic Canadian band in April Wine?" So it's a pleasure to have Brian Greenway on, who is the longest serving member of the band April Wine. A lot of original members have left us, but you put the band back together and run around with Triumph, and I'm so excited to see you and certainly excited to talk about the history of your band, Brian. Thanks for coming on.
You're very welcome. Good to be here. Thanks for
Well,
having us.
you have more like Montreal and Quebec roots as much as proper Canada. And if I remember, in Just Between You and Me, there's a little French line in there too. So you're one of those bands that I think, I guess Rush worked at in Le Studio, and there was Canadian, French Canadian liners and things like that. But you all come at it honest. You were a bilingual band, right?
Well, I mean, it might look that way. Yeah. There's a couple of guys in the band that are French now. And I guess I'm the only one that doesn't really, well, me and Roy don't, they're not quite bilingual. But there is two official languages in this country, in Canada.
Well, we're working on the Spanish here, on my part of being from Aparicio. I just ran around South America. My Spanish isn't as good as it needs to be, and I would think the same thing in Quebec if you're not doing it. But I'm coming up to Montreal to see Rush. It has been quite a year, I think, for Canadian bands, right? For
Yeah.
Rush and Triumph to both do this at the same time. It really does give some oxygen to your band. I had Derry on from Honeymoon Suite as well. There's a little bit of a rush of Canadian music coming back here at this point, right?
There is, and don't forget the Guess Who with Randy and Burton.
Of
No,
course.
they're going out as a Guess Who for the first time this year as well. So there's like Triumph, Rush, uh, Burton Cummings, and Randy going out, man. That's big news. These guys the real Guess Who has not been out for a long time.
Well,
And
I'll say this from the Canadian perspective. I come up to Buffalo a lot, and I tend to traverse the border at least once or twice a year. I was up for opening day with the Blue Jays last year. The Orioles opened up there. So any
yeah,
chance I get to come in, sneak in and see a show, come in, do St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, around Hamilton, up to QEW into Toronto, I get in and out. And whenever I do it, I'm always turned on by the fact that I get the Canadian radio stations. And I own an FCC license here in America, and we have some rules about public service that I tend to keep on the good side of Brendan Carr and the creep running our country. But when I go into Canada, it's ubiquitous that Canadian music is part of all of the stations. And when I listen to the classic rock station, I think it's 107. But I move around a little bit when I'm up there, and I'm usually up there 3 or 4 days. I always have the radio on, and I never ever fail. And I told Derry this from Honeymoon Suite, and I would say this about Sarah McLachlan or Brian Adams, Loverboy, any of the bands. I mean, let's talk about Tragically Hip or Bare Naked Ladies, any of those bands, because of your I guess the politics of radio in Canada, your music and the music of April Wine stays relevant. And I literally remember being driving to Montreal 2 years ago with my wife and hearing April Wine and hearing a song that sounded like April Wine, but I was unfamiliar with the song. But they play your music and keep your music relevant.
They do. I can tune in any station and just about hear April Wine. Sometimes, as soon as I turn on the car, boom, it's there. So I know it's going to be a good day when that happens. But I hear a lot of everybody. It's great to have such a great industry that started only really back in the 70s. Now it's matured, and there's a lot of great bands that have proved themselves all over the world.
Well, and once you have a video on MTV and you're my age, and before that, much music on your side of the border as well, to have it hit like just between you and me, that when Rick Emmett and I are talking, and he just says April Wine, I'm not thinking about the month and the drink. I'm thinking about your band. I'm seeing the logo. I'm seeing the live video from all those years, and the chorus and singing along to it. It's a great song. You came into the band, and I did a little research on this because I didn't know a lot about the band. You were a little late to the party into the band. That band had a lot of legs and a lot of history going back. You mentioned the Guess Who of that era, that real
Yeah.
early 70s era, even though you didn't sort of come into my life maybe till the early 80s.
Yeah, the band started in 69, and by 1970, 71, they were getting charted in Canada. In fact, one of the first singles could have been a lady cover the Hot Chocolate song from England. Did really well in the US too around the 70s. And then nothing happened. We finally came back in the 80s again, late 70s with First Glance and Harder Faster. But I tried to get in the band in 73. I didn't make it. And then I asked for an interview in 73. Then they asked me to come back and try again in 77.
So you've been in the band in and out since 77, and there's a real history, and I would encourage anybody to go up to the official website's aprilwine.ca, perfectly Canadian. Brian Greenway is our guest, and lost a real founding member and really the heart and soul of the beginning of the band about 2 years ago as well, and losing Miles Goodwin. The formation of the band and holding it together, and I say this for any of you two out there that held it together for 4 decades, or Rush, who've lost Neil Peart and now trying to put it back together, even Triumph, where it all fell apart. It's hard to keep a band together, right? And I think anytime I go out and I see modern versions of Foreigner or Styx, you mentioned, I'll talk about Lawrence Gowan, who's been on the show, another fine Canadian who joined
Yeah.
that band, that you have bands and families and keeping people together, losing people, losing members along the way. I saw E Street a couple weeks ago, and I think of Danny Federici, and I think of Clarence Clemens. It's
Yeah.
just it's impossible over 50 years, and yet you go out in front of the logo playing the songs, and you really are the heartbeat of April Wine. You're what's left of the band. It must be a privilege at this point, especially you haven't been on stage yet with Triumph. You haven't been in a room with them. By the time we see you at the end of the month, you're going to have done a dozen shows or
Yeah. Or at
thereabouts.
least, yeah.
Yeah, it's really it's nice to bring this music out, and I know the minute you hit the stage in Florida this week, you're going to see it and feel it when the recognition, especially of Canadian people in Florida beginning to tour, Canadian people in general, when you're doing all those dates up there next month with Triumph, that the music means something to people. When I hear your song, when I hear Just Between You and Me, I think of my 14-year-old girlfriend in middle school, and I think of the music because it never leaves you, does it?
No, there's no time elements with our songs that date anything. People, uh, like you said, it reminds them of a time in their life, which is ideally what music should be able to do, is bring back a nice memory. And we don't make them, we just write the lyrics. And we all, and yourself included, myself, we hear a song, we associate it with what we're doing at the time. And if we really like it, it's embedded in our memories. That's just where it stays. And I'm so happy that this happens. And it's such a joy to be able to still play these songs so many years later. We've been doing this since 1992. We took a break from 84 to 92, but we've been doing it solid since 92. And everywhere we go, people, just between you and me. Yeah, man, we got married to that song. Or I remember doing this to that song. And I remember that too, because I was a fan of the band before I joined. I remember songs like, oh yeah, I remember that song. I was doing this or that, or yeah, I didn't like that, but it was a good song.
Why did you want to be in the band so bad back in the 70s when you were a kid?
Well, I mean, they were doing really, really well, and I love touring and I love playing, and it's just when I first started, even before I could play an instrument, I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be up on the stage. I used to sing at church socials and that just for the fun of it. I enjoyed being up there. My grandfather owned, not owned, but he was a caretaker in the Montreal West Town Hall. They had a big stage with a microphone, an old Electro Voice silver chrome microphone that I'd borrow it. He let me go up there and sing just to an empty room just for myself to have fun when I was about 8 or 9.
Well, you're going to have a bigger crowd than that this time out. Get the background with Triumph a little bit, and they stopped touring as Triumph years ago. And I always kid Rick that he signed a Thunder Seven album for me back when I was the music critic in the '80s, and I was a kid running around chasing bands backstage and whatnot, and watching MTV. And I would think for the Triumph thing for me, Rick's been coming on for a number of years talking baseball and his poetry and his books and whatnot. And I just didn't see it happening or think it happening. And then the Stanley Cup happened. And, I'm
Yeah.
following them online and I'm like, they don't even have a band. They're putting it together and putting other pieces together. And Mike's got some physical issues and whatnot. How did April Wine get put into this? Because when I had Rick on, it must have been late February, early March. He came on and I went up to the dates and I'm like, well, April Wine's open up. That's pretty cool. If they couldn't get Loverboy or they couldn't get Brian, they couldn't get another Canadian band of that era. I thought the availability of that and the packaging, and we're always trying to package bands together so
Yeah.
that folks like me come out and it's not just one band. I get to see two or three for my night out and my money and my parking and whatever. When I heard you were on, I'm thinking, well, that is Canadian appropriate, as what I thought.
It's a great package. When I was asked by our road managers, what do you think of doing an arena tour with Triumph in the States and Canada? It's great. Bring it on. We played with them 30 years ago, or even longer in Texas for 3 or 4 shows. So it's not like we don't know each other. We just haven't seen each other in a long time. I'm looking forward to renewing friendships. Uh, we had been playing a long time in the past. Last year, we last 25, not 2025, we did Europe, we did England, we did across Canada, we did dates in the States. We did 72 shows last year. So our name has been out there. We're ready and primed to go, and I think they are going to be too. This is especially with their help that they're getting with Phil and then the boys. It's going to be a killer show.
Yeah, and you haven't seen it yet, and I think
Yeah.
Gil's going to come on after the first early run, I think, and talk to me a little bit about it. And I sort of purposely, talking to Rick, he was getting giddy, his hair was growing long, he looked 20 years younger. He talked about being in shape and just all the things that are going to be necessary to be in a rock and roll band again. And he's been coming here and sitting on the stool up at Ram's Head and doing the two-man and doing the acoustic songs for years and years, and all of his amazing jazz music and all of that. But just feeling the power of rock and roll and what Triumph stood for and the lights, and all of you had that back in the era as well. And seeing Rush come out too and seeing them become relevant again. This is a beautiful thing that we've all lived long enough to be able to do this. Now, for the music of Triumph, you haven't seen them on stage either. So this is a little bit of side stage fanboy for you too. After you play your set, you'll be interested in what they're doing because I think all of Canada's interested in what's going on there.
Yeah, everybody's got real a curiosity factor going on. I can't wait to see the first show, the first night. It's like a dream come true in a way. You hope that people get back together. You hope the industry gets coming round to you again. And I can't believe it's happening. It's pinched me, man. It's such a good feeling to be able to be part of this.
I'm on my Canadian music tour. I've had Derry Grant from Honeymoon Suite on and Rick Emmett. And now I'm spending time with Brian Greenway from April Wine. They will be opening for Triumph when Triumph comes to our area in Camden. Believe shows May 28th. It's right up just in Camden, New Jersey. I go up all the time. I'll be going up for that show. That'll be my first night with both of you. Hopefully there'll be some extension to the tour and whatnot. And Rush is out doing all of these different dates. I find it fascinating, and there's always money involved in personalities and bands. But once you get to be, let's say, our age, and you guys are all a couple of years older than me, going
Yeah.
out and doing this and the privilege of doing it with members that you pick, and in your case, in your band, some of the members have passed away, and you've morphed the band into where it is at this point. In the case of Rush, trying to find a drummer. In the case of Triumph, just trying to put a band together that people would be excited to go out and see again. You get to package your music in a modern way, pick your set list in a modern way, modern instruments, voice tuning, all the things, the show, the big stage behind you, and all the things you didn't have at a club many, many years ago. And putting a show together like this, that's got to be exciting. You said an arena tour.
Yeah.
That's big stakes for any band, even a band that's been around for 50 years, right?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal is doing large shows. There's no feeling like it. You walk in on the stage and it's the air around the room. You know, anybody you walk into a hockey game or a baseball stadium, especially in an enclosed stadium, it's the air in the place has a certain feeling. You know, it's even though people are quiet, you can hear it. There's always a buzz going on. And to walk up there in this 150-foot wide stage and you got 18,000 at least people there, there's nothing like it. The groundswell coming up. It's large, you know.
And then the
Large
lights
is,
go down, and here you are.
and then the lights go down, and you remember what to do because you've been doing it for a long time.
Well, all of you old guys remember putting up little posters on the fire hydrants and on the telephone poles. Come see our band at the gym, or come see our band at the club, or whatever. And
Yeah,
I've read Getty's book recently, and Rick's written a couple of books as well with Triumph. I know your partner Moss wrote a book just between you and me years ago, talking about on the field, off the field, touring, the
yeah.
business, all of those parts of it. But the moment that happened 2, 3 Sundays ago, I'm just laying in bed. I can't say that I've ever watched the Juno Awards as an American. I know a
Oh,
lot of you won a lot of the
gosh,
awards
yeah.
and whatnot, but Rush coming out and surprising the world, and somebody said to me in the marketing space, they're like, "Oh my God, they had a real viral moment. They had a
Mhm.
real. Nobody knew they were doing it. Nobody sensed it or saw it. Maybe in the building that night there was a little bit of energy saying, "Hey, Getty and Alex and the young lady from Germany, she's here." That they went out and did Finding My Way, and I thought to myself, what a moment for the Junos, for all of you who have been
Yeah.
decorated in that way. We have the Grammys here and they're controversial, political, and all of that. But the Junos, to me, this year, it got my attention. It got me in. I have Luke Dosick coming on, who's played with Sarah McLachlan in his own band for a long time. I was running around South America a couple weeks ago with Brian Adams, and Keith Scott wasn't on stage. I'm like, who's that guitar player who's concentrating really well? And I'm thinking, you Canadian types, y'all stick together up there with the Junos and whatnot.
Oh yeah, we're a tight bunch. I thought it was great to see Rush. It just blew me away. I said, what a perfect opportunity, to show everybody, yeah, this is legitimate. She's a great drummer. She's a great addition to the band. And everybody got goosebumps watching.
There's a Canadian pride involved that I don't even
Yeah.
understand as much as I love Rush and Geddy Lee, right? But it's different being from where you're from and having this be a summer of Canadian music, I think.
Yeah, I'm really proud, and I'm really proud to be part of it. It's a feeling that you can't buy.
Brian Greenway's here. He can't buy the feeling, but you can buy a couple hours of April Wine and Triumph on the 28th of May up in Camden, New Jersey. I'm
Yeah.
certainly going to be making my way up. All right, so what can we expect? I haven't had Gil, I haven't talked to Rick about set list and whatnot. But a big night of April Wine music. I mean, you have a long, strong catalog to pick from.
Yeah, I got 16 albums to choose from. We're picking from the big three. Uh, First Glance, Harder, Faster, and Nature of the Beast. Those were the popular years, the biggest years for us in Europe and the United States and Canada, where everybody recognized those songs. Anything before 77 was only released in Canada. And after, what, 82, things started leveling off a bit. So those are our big songs. Gypsy Queen, just between you and me, I like to rock, all over town, roller.
Roller? Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Good, good, good. We're going to get them all in. Brian Greenway's here from April Wine, taking a moment. And I know you're literally getting on a plane tomorrow. You're going to Florida. You're going to get on stage and start this journey with Triumph that goes into the spring and throughout your country and then down into the States into May. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on May 28th. Thanks for taking a little bit of time. And I will be there front and center for the reunion of a Canadian night of music up in Philadelphia.
Thanks, Nestor. Looking forward to meeting you again.
Appreciate it. Brian Greenway joining us here from April Wine. You can learn about all of their music and their band. It's all available, Spotify, all the places you get music. You can find that at aprilwine.ca. That stands for Canada. That means Oh Canada. At some point, maybe
Okay.
Getty will stop in. There's a rumor. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570. Towson, Baltimore, talking rock and roll and appreciating it at Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.